So Joe, this is our first soundbite recording after the new year. And I feel like a lot of people are like, this is the year I'm going to follow my passion. This is the year I'm not going to just like deal with the status quo. I'm going to actually do what I want to do. And it can be hard. And people are trying to take that, or a lot of people are thinking about taking that leap from corporate to solopreneurship. It's just a growing trend. And I kind of feel like we should talk about our stories, kind of our cautionary tales, but also our cheerleader tales, and just really motivate people to follow what they want to do and enter the world of solopreneurship. What do you think?
Well, I think so. And I think every time I see one of these back to the office mandates from some Fortune 500 company, a lot more people start thinking about what it would be like to be a solopreneur.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Thank you, Fortune 500s.
Yes, exactly. Well, I jumped into the world of solopreneurship back in 2016. And I remember being terrified because I am a very social person. I'm very extroverted. And I was nervous I was going to lose that when I leapt into solopreneurship. Turns out I am much more engaged with people now as a solopreneur than I was before. And that was one of my biggest fears. But looking back even more than that's the one that stands out. Just thinking of the things that I wanted to get in place before I jumped ship and what I recommend to other people is having an idea of what you want to do. We have the solopreneur success cycle and we talk about ikigai and figuring out your business. And a lot of this stuff should really be done before you jump ship from the corporate world. And before you actually, I feel like the planning part of your business should be done while you still have a job so that your execution phase can be done when you leave. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no reason not to plan your business while you're still working unless you work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, the planning stuff can be done at any time. You can do it at night. You can do it in the morning over coffee. But all that stuff is so important to get right and so important to check before you leap. So I absolutely suggest going through that first phase, that envision phase, right? Where you start with your goals. What do you want out of this? Why are you doing this? Because it ain't going to be easy. And as easy as you think it's going to be, my favorite little meme there, we do this not because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy. and it's so true. So just remember that you've got to have a good reason for doing it. Get those goals written down, those whys written down, and then imagine the business. Start with imagining it and check if the business makes sense. Talk to people. You can do all this stuff, if you keep it discreet while you still have a job, and get some feedback and develop a good idea that you can then start with. And then when you leave, or maybe not leave, maybe you just do a side hustle for start. I mean, that's a really good way to kind of keep that income and benefits going and get your business to the point where it's grown enough that you can make that leap without having to go onto benefits from the government to buy your groceries. So I think it's a really good idea to start with a side hustle, unless you've got something that you can really leap into with regard to business. I'm saying, if you can line up a bunch of clients before you even leave your company, great, go for it. But if not, take your time, do it slowly.
I'm so glad you said line up your clients, because I would argue the biggest thing we hear from solopreneurs is their issue with lead generation and getting those clients. Their business is great. They tested it with people and everybody said, yeah, this is a really good idea. And so they think that means it's time to jump ship. But you need to have a lead gen strategy in mind and tested before you leave. And you also need to figure out how that pipeline is going to continue. We talked about recurring revenue last week. And you just need to make sure that you're not solely relying on the one client you get and just focusing all the time and attention towards them once you leave corporate. You need to have that client, and then you need to continue working on getting your next client, because you never know when that first client's going to leave. So just to save you the stress, really think about your lead gen strategy before you leave corporate, because that's essential for the livelihood of your business.
It's the same pattern we see over and over. People, they leave, they start their solo business. They know a bunch of people. They have a network. They engage some of those people as clients. Everything's wonderful. And then, some time goes by and they start leaving because either they're finished or whatever, and the pipeline is empty. And it's like, oh no, What do I do now? And that you end up with that feast or famine. Then they're off, building up the leads. And so you need that process, like you're saying. And just to put some color on what you're saying too, with the couple of clients, I started a company. It wasn't a solopreneur company. It was with a partner. And for a number of years, we had 2 customers. They were great customers and they were paying a good amount of money and it was keep making us profitable, but there were 2. And if one of them left, we were doomed. And it was a very uncomfortable place to be. And we eventually got focused, got that up to 75 or 80 customers. And then it was a lot less scary when the prospect of somebody leaving for whatever reason came along, because it was, not going to be half the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joe, the other things I would consider, so lead gen is one, but also think about the things that you don't realize other people were doing for you in the corporate world that you now need to do for yourself. So for me, taxes was when you're working for a company, your taxes are much easier than when you're a solopreneur.
Let's put that W-2 in.
Exactly. So figuring that out. Health insurance, most companies provide health insurance. You need to figure that out. Joe, we were talking offline about Cobra and being able to extend your coverage. I think that is a great option for people, but I would also say shop around because Cobra can be really expensive.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, you're basically paying what the company's paying. And sometimes it's really great coverage and it's worth keeping. And sometimes it's just better for you to find something maybe a little less robust and, a lot less expensive.
Yeah. But the other things I would say in terms of thinking what other people would do for you, just as an example, I'm in marketing, but when I was working for an agency, I was often client side doing strategy, client interactions. I was the liaison between the client and the rest of the agency. And I'm not great at PPC and I'm not great at social because I always allocated that or delegated that to other teams within the agency. And so I was like, okay, so I know I need to outsource these things or learn these things if time allows. And so think about those skills that you've always been able to offer in your corporate world that you may not want to focus on in your solopreneur world, and think of how you can still either drop those, delegate those, or educate yourself on those before you leave, and see if you still want to offer what you're used to offering as a corporate job.
Yeah, absolutely great advice. Yeah. Hey, just one thing I want to back up on Cobra. I meant to mention, if your company has fewer than 20 employees, in some places you may not qualify for Cobra. So don't assume it. You do your homework. I just want to put that out there because I'd hate to have somebody find out the hard way.
So moral of the story, we are big champions for solopreneurship. Obviously, that's what Lifestar is all about. But don't jump into it blindly. Ask yourself if you think you can even be a solopreneur. Some people, they are not cut out for it. We're actually developing a quiz right now to see if people are actually ready for going out in the solo world. But just ask yourself, am I self-motivated? Is this something I actually want to do? Or if you're just frustrated with your job, you will get imposter syndrome. That's a given. Just prepare for that.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I think imposter syndrome is it means you know what you don't know, which people when they get started don't have that, right? They don't even know what they don't know. And they're like, oh, this will be easy.
Exactly. So we say go for it. If solopreneurship is in your cards, we're 100% behind you and we're happy to help with every step of the way. But just get your ducks in a row before you jump in. And that's my advice.
I think it's great advice. Thanks, Carly.
Great. Well, thanks for tuning in, listeners. As always, we'd love that 5-star review. Please subscribe on any of your favorite podcast platforms, including YouTube. And we will see you next time on the Aspiring Solopreneur.